Please leave my home. We were just leaving.
But Grandpa,
Come on, son.
Today's story. My stepson kicked us out. I bought a rusted Quonset for $5 with my 15-year-old grandson. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is. Now let's get into the story. The day my stepson told us to leave felt unreal. The house was quiet and sunlight spread across the living room floor like nothing had changed. He stood in the doorway with his arms folded and his face showed no emotion. "You have until tonight," he said. His voice was calm and cold at the same time. There was no anger and no explanation, just a decision that had already been made. For a moment I could not move. I had helped raise him after his father died. I had spent my savings repairing the house when the roof leaked and the walls cracked. I had treated him like my own son, and now he was looking at me like I was a stranger. My 15-year-old grandson stood beside me. He had grown taller this year, but in that moment he looked small. His hands were tight, and I could see he wanted to say something, but he stayed quiet. He understood. What I was starting to realize, the house was never truly ours. We packed slowly, 2 small bags, clothes, important papers, a photo album with the last pictures of his mother. I walked through every room before, leaving the kitchen where we laughed and shared late-night snacks, the hallway where he learned to ride his small bike, the backyard where we had planted vegetables that never grew, the living room where we watched old movies together, the small study where I tried to teach him his lessons. None of it belonged to us anymore. When we stepped outside, the door closed behind us softly. That soft sound felt louder than anything. We walked without knowing where to go. The evening air grew cooler as the sun went down. Finally, we sat at a bus stop at the edge of town. Cars passed by without slowing down. My grandson looked at the road ahead. "It is temporary, Grandpa," he said. "We will figure something out." His voice was steady, but I could hear the effort behind it. He was trying to be strong for me. I nodded, even though I had no clear plan. The next morning we went into town early. Pride no longer mattered. I checked notice boards for work, while my grandson asked shop owners if they needed help. Most people avoided eye contact. A few gave polite smiles, but nothing more. Then I saw a wrinkled yellow paper pinned to a board near the gas station. "Rusted Quonset hut, Mountain Ridge property, needs removal, $5. I read it. Again, to be sure, $5. It sounded almost like a joke. I looked at my grandson, and he stared back at me with wide eyes. Could this really be ours? Could we survive there? The gas station clerk noticed me staring. He had known me for years without asking questions. He placed $5 into my hand. "Pay me back when you can," he said quietly. By midday, we were walking up a rough dirt path toward the mountain ridge. The climb was steep and the wind pushed against us. The sky was wide and clear above us. The air smelled of dry grass and distant pine trees. The path was uneven and sharp rocks dug into our shoes. Then we saw it. The Quonset hut stood alone against the open sky. Its curved metal roof was covered in deep rust. The door hung slightly crooked. Tall weeds surrounded the base. It looked forgotten by everyone. Its color was a mix of red and brown, fading into patches of green moss. The roof was dented and bent in some places, but it still held shape. The ground around it was uneven, with stones and roots protruding. The mountains behind, it looked endless, and the sky above stretched wider than anything we had seen in town. My grandson stepped closer and studied it carefully. "It is not perfect," he said. I nodded. "But it is ours," he added. Those words changed something inside me. My heart felt lighter than it had in weeks. We walked up to the door and pushed it open together. It made a loud, creaking sound. Inside, the air smelled like dust and metal. Sunlight entered through small cracks in the roof. Thin beams of light cut across the empty space. There was no furniture, no insulation, just bare ground and curved steel walls. For a moment, doubt entered my mind. Had I brought him here for nothing? Then he dropped his bag onto the ground and looked at me with determination. "We can fix this," he said. His confidence gave me strength. We spent the rest of the day clearing broken branches and debris. With our hands, we swept dust aside with pieces of cardboard. By evening, we had made a small clean area near the back wall. We laid flattened boxes on the ground for bedding. The wind rattled the metal walls, making shadows dance across the floor. I lay awake staring at the curved ceiling. Fear tried to settle in. We had little money, no guarantee of safety, no clear future. But we had something important. This place belonged to us. No one could order us out. No one could close a door behind us. It was not a beautiful house, it was not comfortable, it was not secure, but it was ours. And sometimes having something that is truly yours is enough to begin again. As night fell, the temperature dropped and the stars appeared in the dark sky above the mountain ridge. My grandson curled up on the cardboard bedding and fell asleep quickly. I stayed awake thinking about the future and how we would survive and what we would need to make this place a home. The moonlight shone through the cracks in the roof and the shadows of the metal walls moved slowly with the wind. I imagined what we could build, what we could find, and what we could become in this place that no one else wanted. I realized that losing everything had given us freedom. The mountain air felt sharper and clearer than the town air. The silence was heavy, but it was ours to fill. The rusted metal walls did not scare me anymore. They felt like a beginning. They felt like a chance to prove to my grandson and to myself that we could survive and thrive even when the world turned its back. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since being kicked out, I felt hope, a small glimmer at first, but growing stronger with each passing moment. The first few days in the Quonset hut were harder than I imagined. The mountain wind was relentless. It cut through the thin metal walls and made the entire structure shake. My grandson shivered beside me as we tried to make the cardboard bedding warmer. The nights were cold and the dark inside felt heavy, but we refused to leave. We created a routine. Early in the morning, I went into town looking for odd jobs, painting fences, cleaning sheds, carrying heavy boxes, anything to earn money, while my grandson searched for scrap wood, metal, and other materials we could use to repair the hut. Every day was exhausting, but every day we felt a little stronger. We started repairing the hut with whatever we could find. Broken boards, old metal sheets, discarded pieces of insulation. Nothing seemed perfect, but slowly the space began to feel safer. My grandson suggested raising our sleeping platform off the ground to avoid the damp. He found planks behind an abandoned factory, and we spent hours hammering them together. Using rocks and old nails, we built a small raised platform that was uneven but solid. Every nail we hammered, every plank we lifted, every piece of metal we bent gave us a sense of accomplishment. It felt like reclaiming something we had lost. Our hut was transforming slowly from a forgotten shell to a place that could protect us. Some people in town laughed when they heard where we lived. They said the hut would collapse in the first storm. They said it was worthless, but we stopped listening. Their words could not reach us here. The mountain did not judge us. The wind did not care about opinions. Only our hands and our determination mattered. One afternoon, while leveling the ground behind the hut, my grandson hit something solid with his shovel. Clang. The sound echoed in the empty mountain air. He froze and looked at me. "Grandpa," he whispered, "is it something important?" I nodded, and we carefully dug around the metal edge. Exposed beneath the dirt was a container, rusted and old but sealed tightly. Our hearts raced as we pried it open. Inside were wrapped items, old military tools, sealed equipment, and documents. The papers showed that the hut had once been part of a temporary storage site decades ago. Somehow this container had been forgotten. We carried everything inside and cleaned it slowly, examining each item. My grandson researched the markings using the library computer. The results surprised us. Some of the tools were rare collectibles. Some instruments were from the 1950s. Certain pieces were highly valuable to collectors. It felt surreal. We had bought a rusted hut for $5, and now it contained treasures that could change our lives. We decided not to rush anything. We carefully contacted verified buyers, and the first sale brought in more money than I had earned in months of odd jobs. With the money, we bought insulation panels, sealant screws, and other supplies. We reinforced the door, patched cracks in the roof, and lined the walls, slowly making the space warmer and safer. My grandson helped with everything. His hands were small but steady. Every improvement gave him confidence and gave me hope. Nights were still cold, but the small wood stove we made from scrap provided warmth. The sound of the wind against the metal walls became less frightening. We began to see beauty in the rust and dents. The hut told a story, and now it included ours. We even began to notice the little things around us. The mountain air smelled of pine and earth. Birds circled above, and occasionally a deer passed by. In the distance, the rising sun cast golden light on the curved metal roof, and the shadows of the trees danced across the floor. The place felt alive, and it belonged to us. My grandson started keeping notes about our repairs and discoveries. He documented what we found in the container and which pieces were valuable. He dreamed about how we could make the hut even better. Perhaps a small solar panel or a rainwater collector. He spoke with excitement, and I realized that hope had returned to him too. We began to bond even more deeply. We laughed when mistakes happened. We argued when the work was frustrating, but at the end of the day we worked together, sitting on the raised platform planning what to do next. We were no longer just surviving, we were building a life. One evening, while looking at the sunset over the mountains, my grandson whispered, "Grandpa, we can do anything here." I smiled, knowing he was right. We had nothing, but we had each other, and that was enough. The Quonset hut was no longer a rusted shell. It was a home in progress, and we were learning to love it. Every day we discovered new challenges: leaks in the roof, rodents that scuttled at night, and stones that shifted under our feet. But each challenge taught us patience and resilience. The wind howled and the metal walls shook, but we had found strength inside ourselves that we did not know existed. The mountain ridge that once felt desolate now felt like a sanctuary. It was quiet but alive. We had built something with our hands and our minds, and that gave us purpose. The container of tools had been a surprise, but our work and determination had been the true treasure. By the end of the second month, we had a functioning shelter and a small system to collect rainwater and keep firewood dry. The platform was stable and the walls were lined with insulation from scrap ore. We still had no furniture and only the basics, but we felt pride. Each morning we woke to sunlight and fresh mountain air, and each evening we fell asleep listening to the wind and knowing that this time it could not hurt us. We realized that losing everything had forced us to discover our true potential and each other. The rusted Quonset hut had become a symbol of survival and hope, and every nail hammered, every scrap of wood placed, every piece of insulation added was a step toward a future we could control and dream about. By the time winter arrived, the Quonset hut looked completely different. The rusted metal walls were patched and strengthened, the roof was reinforced, and the insulation lined the curved interior. The small wood stove provided warmth, and the sunlight coming through the cracks created golden patterns on the floor. My grandson and I had worked tirelessly to turn this abandoned shell into a place that felt safe and alive. Each day brought new challenges. The wind blew harder and colder. Some nights the metal walls shook as if the mountain itself was testing us. The temperature dropped below freezing and snow covered the surrounding ridge. My grandson helped gather firewood, and I chopped logs with careful precision. We learned to layer blankets and use cardboard and scrap wood to keep the cold from reaching our sleeping area. It was difficult, but we had learned to survive and thrive together. Our days were spent fixing small leaks, patching gaps, and improving the structure. Searching for scrap wood or discarded materials became a daily adventure. My grandson discovered old boards behind a nearby abandoned shed, and we used them to create shelves and small storage spaces. We reinforced the door with old hinges and a wooden bar, making it more secure. Every improvement made the hut feel more like a home. Inside the hut, the air smelled faintly of pine smoke and metal and dust. We made small improvements to lighting using mirrors to reflect sunlight into darker corners. Each evening we shared simple meals and talked about what we could build next. We laughed at mistakes and celebrated small victories. The act of building something together brought a sense of pride and hope that we had not felt in months. One day, while clearing the ground behind the hut, we discovered a small stream hidden by tall grass. My grandson suggested using stones to redirect the water to a small collection area. We worked together, shaping a tiny trough that would allow us to gather fresh water. The simplicity of the solution amazed us and reminded us that survival was about using what we had creatively. The items from the container we had found months ago became crucial to our new life. Some of the tools were sold to collectors, and the money helped us buy small necessities. Some were kept for future projects. We had a balance between using what we found and preserving the pieces of history. The experience taught us patience and resourcefulness and gave us a sense of accomplishment that was far greater than any material possession. My grandson began documenting our journey using his old phone. He filmed short clips of us repairing the hut, collecting water, and cooking over the small stove. He uploaded them with captions like, "From kicked out to rebuilding." People began to watch and comment. Some shared their own stories. Some offered advice and encouragement. Others were amazed that 2 generations could transform a rusted Quonset into a livable home. The support motivated us to continue improving our home and documenting the process. By the second winter, we had managed to create a small but efficient system for warmth, water, and basic living. We added a solar panel using old batteries to power a small light at night. We created storage for firewood and tools and organized the inside of the hut to make it more comfortable. Each improvement was a small victory, but each victory reinforced our confidence and determination. The mountain ridge that once seemed lonely and unforgiving now felt protective and nurturing. We watched sunsets together, noticing how the light reflected on the metal walls and how the colors of the sky changed each evening. Grandson and I talked about our dreams for the future and how we could expand the hut or build another structure nearby. The ideas flowed freely and hope grew stronger with every passing day. We also learned to appreciate the quiet and the simplicity of our surroundings. The sounds of the wind birds and distant wildlife became comforting. The night sky full of stars and the moonlight reflected on the snow, and metal walls reminded us that we were alive and free. We were no longer bound by the cruelty of the past or the demands of a stepson. We had discovered independence and resilience in the most unexpected place. Sometimes visitors came up the ridge to see our transformation. People from town, journalists, and curious hikers were amazed at what we had achieved. 2 years after being forced out, we were not only surviving but thriving. The hut was no longer a rusted Quonset, but a testament to determination, creativity, and hope. One afternoon, a local journalist asked if I felt anger toward my stepson. I looked at my grandson and then at the hut and replied that the anger had faded. We had been forced out, but it had led us here. It had led us to discover our strength and to build a life that was truly ours. The rusted hut that cost $5 had given us shelter, but more importantly, it had given us resilience, independence, and a renewed sense of purpose. As the sun set behind the mountains, its light reflected off the curved metal roof there. Grandson and I stood outside looking at the home we had created. The wind blew gently and the air smelled of pine and wood smoke. We realized that losing everything had been painful, but it had opened the door to something far greater. We were alive together and capable of anything. The Quonset hut had become more than a home. It was a symbol of our journey and a reminder that even in the most unexpected places, hope and perseverance could transform lives. We had started with nothing but courage and determination, and now we had a future built with our own hands. Every beam, every plank, every scrap of metal was a story of survival and love. The mountain ridge had become our sanctuary and the hut our legacy.